Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the Tory and Tory client media obsession with their Angela Rayner attack lines and whether it might backfire on them in the context of the general election. So essentially there are three things to go over here. First, how can we be so sure that Angela Rayner hasn't been trapped here? Second, what advantage are the Tories getting out of this insane level of coverage? And third, how could it potentially backfire on the Tories in the longer term? So the first one, can we be sure that the Mail and the Tories don't actually have anything on Rayner? Am I just being tribal in defending her when I would leap on reports of wrongdoing by a Tory MP? Well, no. First of all, I've not actually passed comment along the lines of Rayner has definitely done nothing wrong, because I can't possibly know. All I've seen are the media reports like anyone else. However, as a mathematician, shall we do a little proof by contradiction? So let's assume that Rayner has done something illegal and it's only a matter of time before the authorities say so. What would be the consequences? Well, it would be damaging for Labour, not just Rayner. The Tories are drowning in a tsunami of their own sleaze, corruption and other associated willy-waving escapades. They are desperately trying to say that this is an issue which affects all parties. Cabinet Minister Claire Coutinho, when asked about the Tory sleaze scandals yesterday, said, oh, it's affecting all parties. No. There's like one or two examples in other parties and literally dozens for the Conservatives in the same time frame. So if the Tories could point at wrongdoing at the top of the Labour Party, well, that would be brilliant for them. In addition, Rayner is their number 2 target. If they can't get Starmer, they'll get her. She's the only member of the shadow cabinet not handpicked by Starmer. They'd love to cause some friction. And finally, of course, Rayner has basically said that she will resign if she's found guilty. So the stakes are immensely high. The consequences for Labour would be bad. The Labour Party collectively would be absolutely insane to allow this to happen. What she's being accused of is pretty minor. It's fairly petty stuff. If she were guilty of any of these random charges, do you know what? It'd have been way better to just own up, say it was inadvertent, sorry, apologise and move on. In denying the accusations against this level of pressure, the Labour leadership need to be satisfied that she is completely in the clear. Otherwise, it's not only really bad for Rayner, it's bad for the rest of them. We know that experts have gone through things with Rayner within the Labour Party. It's obvious this would happen. Senior members of the Labour Party, including Starmer, are backing her to the hilt. That is a sign that they have been assured, yeah, she's got nothing to worry about. Anything else would be a strategic blunder on Labour's part, the like of which we only really get from the current Tory leadership. In fact, Tom Daley, the Conservative MP who originally pressed the police to investigate, has been asked multiple times in interviews to say what he thinks Rayner has done wrong, and he has been unable to answer every single time he's asked. If the person pressing the charges doesn't even know what the charges are, it's a safe bet there aren't any. So second, what advantage are the Tories deriving from this attack line in the short term? Well, they think it's useful for the local and mayoral elections. Until the police have definitively cleared Rayner, the Tories are able to play on doubts and suggest that Labour are as sleazy as themselves. They can't actually deny their own sleaze and corruption, it's too obvious. So instead they try to suggest that all politicians are basically the same. But it's also a distraction for Labour. When they're going to be interviewed and they want to talk about the cost of living or housing or healthcare, or basically any of the issues that voters find important, they're first of all being asked about Rayner. It's eaten into some of the bandwidth that they want to use to discuss the issues which matter to voters. So in the short term, the Tories are terribly pleased with how this is going. It will definitely run beyond the elections next week. And the longer it does, the more their client journalists will ask questions about this instead of real issues. But in the more medium and long term, how might it backfire? Well, it could literally backfire. I was asked yesterday why Labour don't come back with the sort of grand scale tax dodgers like Rishi Sunak and Lord Ashcroft. Well, because the interviewer will say they're just deflecting and ask why they're trying to change the subject if Rayner's done nothing wrong. However, once she's been cleared, if Labour strategists think it's useful, then they will then be able to. And if the response is that, oh, Ashcroft did so that that was tax avoidance. That's legal. They're allowed to do that. Labour can still ask why it's legal to be able to dodge tens of millions of pounds worth of tax before moving on to Nadeem Zahawi, whose tax dodging was not remotely legal. So, I mean, this isn't just the pot calling the kettle black. This is the Tory party inside a glass house throwing stones. Now, I don't think Labour would go hard on this line, because then they'd be using up that time that they want to spend talking about real issues. But it might be useful to just initially fire back with a little bit more punch than the Tories mustered. Another problem for the Tories might relate to a story published yesterday about some focus group results, which indicated that voters are turned off by culture wars. So groups were sort of shown campaign messages from both Labour and the Conservatives, where the statements which addressed important local issues, like jobs, tackling antisocial behaviour, those voters approved of those. They were considered interesting to them. And the ones pushing culture wars, they were a real turn-off. It was like, no, that's in the bin. Not that most voters even know what a culture war is, according to this research. It found that, generally speaking, the people who understood the term were those who were politically engaged. But nonetheless, when you show a normal voter a culture war statement, they're put off by it. In fact, some of the respondents suggested the culture war messages would actively stop them voting for that party. And if all the parties were doing it, they just wouldn't vote for anyone. You know, there's every reason to believe that, although people can't help notice this story, it's certainly featuring on people's radars because it's been pushed so heavily. It's not converting anyone. And let's go back to my comment about Labour being irritated because it's limiting the time that they have to talk about important issues. Well, this counts double for the Tories. Like, Labour will at least they'll try and answer the question as quickly and as concisely as possible and move on to the real issues. They'll be trying to talk about the real issues. It's only the interviewer reducing the time available. But the Tories are choosing to bring up the culture wars. Rayner, Rwanda, trans rights, they're actively choosing to discuss what are, for the vast majority of voters, non-issues. So what is an irritation for Labour at the moment is arguably a bigger distraction for the Tories, both now and until the investigation concludes, and potentially beyond. Because you know what they're going to do then, don't you? Oh, well, the Great Manchester Police, it's London, it's a Labour mayor, it's all a stitch-up. You know what's coming next. They're still going to tie themselves in knots in it. What's happening with the Rayner smear campaign is it's the story of Rishi Sunak's modus operandum. He and his colleagues gleefully take every opportunity to talk about anything that's got like an emotive dimension because they aren't as easily stung by facts then. But it means they're simply not talking about the issues voters are prioritising. By the time this video comes out, Sunak will have held another press conference this morning. It'll be after I've recorded the video, so I don't know what it's about. It's probably Rwanda. I'm guessing it's not about the election date, although hope springs eternal. If it is, I mean, this video will probably never see the light of day. But it's likely to be some more tosh intending to distract us from Sunak's myriad failures. Apparently, he's having a blitz this week in terms of grand announcements, both in this country and elsewhere. He's going to be making these huge announcements to try and persuade people that he's actually doing some work. You know, also, I imagine he's doing the big blitz this week so that he can justify hiding in a cupboard next week at the sharp end of the local elections, where he'll presumably hide away as usual. I'm going to hazard a guess here and suggest whatever these grand announcement blitzers are, including the one from today, which I suppose started with his welfare speech on Friday, is not going to move the dial in the polls. Apart from anything else, with the Tories pushing this Rayner story so hard, there's ironically less chance that members of the public even find out what Rishi Sunak's got to say this week. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.